Welcome to Season 2. This is our episode number 7 of Business Matters Podcast from the Wind Technology Studio. And we want to recognize and thank our media sponsor, Royal Credit Union. Today, I have the pleasure of interviewing Chris Dooley, who is the owner of Midwest Select Insurance Group here in Eau Claire. We're going to talk a little bit about how Chris got started, a new program we have going with him and the Chamber, and an opportunity for a lot of our businesses to take a look at insurance and how they can best take care of their employees. So let's start off, Chris, a little bit about you, your background, and how you got into an insurance industry at a time maybe most would have thought probably not the wisest move in the world.
Yeah, so actually I started in 2000 and I was in a role of a regional manager for a voluntary insurance company. And around the time that, what would you call Obamacare or the ACA hit for health insurance, I had decided to go on my own. The landscape and the atmosphere in insurance was changing dramatically.
Sure.
We could feel it coming. So originally when we started this endeavor as Midwest Select Insurance Group, we actually partnered with other insurance organizations and handled enrollments for them.
Oh, okay.
And that gave us a unique perspective from that employee level and helping those employers, but then also getting down and getting to know the employee. Well, after about 3/4 of a year of doing that, and we saw the changes within the landscape of health insurance, we jumped into the health insurance side of the business, primarily in the individual health. So certain partners of ours would call and say, hey, these particular employers are not going to be able to afford group health anymore. How can you help these employees? Well, we would sit down with each employee and we would actually help them get their marketplace coverage, Obamacare, whatever you want to call it. And then that morphed into us getting into group health insurance and trying to get a little more innovative, and then introducing what we'll talk later on today, which is our defined contribution program, which has been very attractive for small business within the whole Midwest.
Sure. Okay. So give me a little bit more about, you saw Obamacare, you saw these gaps. What did you really envision or hope that you and your company would become? What niches were you striving for?
Well, I wanted to combine an enrollment firm and an insurance agency, more of that broker insurance agency, those brokers that handle those larger accounts and offer group benefits. But I felt if we were being hired out, and being hired out quite often by brokers all over the Midwest, then there must be a need. Why wouldn't we just provide both the health insurance, the broker advice, and do the personal enrollment? And we've kept that model ever since we've started, as we do not have to hire out bits and pieces of our business. We actually use our own firm and our own people to do our own enrollments. And giving the employees someone they can talk to in the insurance business is very unique. If you remember back in the old days, mom and dad had a life insurance person.
Yeah.
That person would knock on their door. We have our financial advisors. I call a financial advisor for advice. Well, what employee on the line really has an insurance rep anymore? Maybe outside of their auto home, which they also can get online.
Yep.
So giving that employee a resource to say, hey, can someone help me? Which dentist do I go to? Instead of going to HR, which HR is great as they are, they're not insurance agents and they can't master every network and they don't know all the changes that are going on. So we actually have that direct avenue to our agents from the employee. So the employee can call and say, I'm going through this issue, which they don't want to talk to their employer about anyways, and it gives them the ability to talk to us and give them some guidance, tell them how to use their insurance that they maybe have purchased or that they've joined in. And that gives that employee a comfort level that obviously things aren't going to be shared with their employer, and they don't want to talk about certain things with their employer.
Right.
So,
I mean, health insurance, whatever it is still kind of personal as we're learning
personal.
currently going on. It's everybody has their opinion. And I guess one thing I have learned with all of that is a lot of people, your closest relationship sometimes, other than a family member or spouse, is that doctor, is to really be able to sit down and be able to have that conversation. So we first really got to know each other as we talked about trying to roll out or identify benefits for small business. How do they, in the workforce problems that we have today, we started at identifying how do we help those small businesses stay competitive to try and go out and get those best employees when they can't necessarily offer the same kind of a benefit package an employer of 100, 2, 3, 400 employees can. So, we met you and Wally, you're one of your salespeople and met people. Talk us a little bit about how you identified this again back in the beginning of providing these benefits that are critical, but probably in a completely different way than most people would ever think about, and not know how to do it maybe.
Right. So when I started this business in 2012, actually Midwest Select, excuse me, the what I could think of as being a business owner is how do I attract and retain when I'm up against the biggest of the big? And the traditional small employer only had a couple of options. It was some sort of a voluntary insurance that was based on individual rates. Popular, but very expensive.
Mm-hmm.
So as I was developing Midwest Select, I was trying to come up with this defined contribution model. And the key to the model is to be able to get affordable rates through a group product. But then there's a second piece to it is, do you just put in one product or how do you put in multiple products? If there's only 5 employees, you're only going to have one on this, one on that, one on
Right.
this. A lot of companies that we dealt with did not want to provide those kind of benefits. They say, well, we'll give you a great dental price, but we need all 10 out of 10 employees. Well, that's pretty unrealistic when you only have 5 employees.
Right.
Or you have 7 employees. So when I put this together and I was trying to think of it, someone actually called on me, and the company was from Companion Life. And he brought in the second half of the piece of the puzzle that I needed, and he really laid it out and helped me put it together. Is we're able to put in a menu of different benefits at group rates, and many times as competitive or more competitive than the large employer down the street, without participation requirements on those benefits, meaning we can put in life, disability, vision, dental, and if 7 employees there, all 7 can get on dental or 1 can put on dental. Then the third part of this, which if you talk to any employer, budget.
Yes.
Budget is huge,
Yep.
right? So how do you do this, put in competitive benefits and do it on a budget? So in this particular example, I broke it down to a 40-hour work employee. So in this particular program, imagine giving your spouse or someone a gift card at Christmas, right? Why do you give them a gift card? Because you really don't know what they want.
Right. Yep.
Right. So we do the same thing with an employer is we want them to give the employees, in any sense, a gift card in the form of a benefit allowance. So you can give them $25, $50, $75 a month. Now, if you give an employee $25 a month, immediately everyone does the math. They say, 5 employees, $125 a month. But if you break it down to the 40-hour workday, it's 14 cents an hour. Now, I know a lot of employers around here, including myself, our last raises were a lot more than 14 cents an hour. But that 14 cents goes miles when you present a very, very attractive, let's say, dental plan in front of that employee who hasn't had dental in the past.
True.
And they kind of go, okay, wow, this is a value. Because the only other dental plan I could get was an individual that had all these waiting periods. No. We put in one that doesn't have any waiting periods because we're part of this whole group, this whole chamber group. And that employee sees a lot of value out of that 14 cents. Now, an employer that wants to put in $50, you're still only at 28 cents an hour. So if you look at that cost as opposed to just putting a group health plan, which is a minimum probably of $250 per employee per month on the employer's contribution,
Right.
50%. For $250 a month, you could have 5 employees and put this in for the entire group and be fairly robust.
And so what are the maximum, when we talk about small businesses now, and everybody from you and I all the way up to the U.S. government have a whole definition of small business. What's your sweet spot? But what is that large end of the small business, and is there a minimum?
Well, the minimum is down to 2, and that's only
Okay.
for chamber members. I cannot do that outside of the chamber.
Okay.
And we've been able to get a really robust program for 5. 10 is where it started years ago. That's when
Okay.
I started this. But the chamber has a benefit down to 2. When I say the largest, there are very, very large companies that do this
Okay.
because certain industries, they find that it's easier to let the employee choose
Mm-hmm.
than to try and choose for the employee. There's actually a few studies that were out there that a well-communicated average benefit plan is much more appreciated than a very rich benefit plan not communicated. Well, a benefit plan that's communicated is clearly happening when the employee chooses
Right.
what they want.
Yeah.
So it's very different. So I would say in our market, I'm just going to pick on this. Of course, everyone wants the largest of the large, but I'd say that under 50
Okay.
is where we focus, and several times it's under 25. The under 50 tends to be in a position where they may or may not offer health insurance. And certainly that under 25 is really looking at going, are we better off offering group health plan, or are we better off offering something else and letting everyone else go to the marketplace? Well, when you put in something like a defined contribution plan where you say, Mr. Employee, I'm going to give you $50 a month. Here's a menu of benefits that you can choose from. You pick and choose what's good for your family, guaranteed issue, no waiting periods, anything like that. But we're not going to offer health insurance. It goes, oh, geez, we're not going to offer health insurance. However, the funny part is when you have a one-on-one consultant like Wally or some of my other people that are sitting there, guess what they can do for that employee at no cost? They can walk them through that Obamacare site. Now, what a lot of people don't understand is until you look at it, the costs on those plans are considerably cheaper. If you've seen any ads on TV, 4 out of 5 people get it for less than $10 a month. Well, in my eyes, supporting small business, is that retail store or that restaurant, could they use those dollars that they're already paying for? Could they use some of those subsidy dollars to help their employees? So many times if an employer puts in health insurance, they may actually hurt their employee.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
So
Yep.
if you are given group health at work, you cannot get a subsidy. Well, 4 out of 5 people are paying less than $10 a month, and we know the cost of health insurance as a group. It makes sense to have someone just help them navigate that. The reason people don't get health insurance is not that it's not accessible. They just don't do it. They
Right.
need someone to help them navigate it. Who wants to go out there and pick deductibles and co-pays and understand co-insurance? But if you've got someone there who's no cost, so you're already dealing with through the employer, you've just given the employer a huge benefit. Not only are you offering a defined contribution plan through the chamber, you're also giving your employees on-site assistance to get what they need done. And
Right.
our people are pros, so they understand all the odd situations that people run into and subsidies and divorces. And if I'm going to sell some lumber or whatever it is. So it's amazing when we look at it. I'll do a math equation for a small employer and I say, well, it's your choice. You can spend a few thousand a month on health insurance, or you can spend nothing,
Yeah. So we've talked a lot about this. What are the different options? So again, when the employer says I'm going to give $50, $100 per month per employee, for the employee, what are the different options they have to choose from? Let's
Okay.
talk a little bit about those.
Yeah, so the first one is group life. Now, normally on group life, the employer pays for it. The difference being on the chamber plan is just based on the SIC code of the business, standard industry class. We're going to be able to just give you the price. We don't have to take a census. I don't care if everyone in that crew is 50-some years old like me or they're 20-some years old like my son. It doesn't make any difference. The price is already established and it's very, very affordable.
Okay.
So again, simplicity and affordability. Second thing is voluntary life. The employee who says, I need a little bit more life insurance, they can get up to $100,000 guaranteed issue, no questions asked. Now, to put that in perspective, and I think any insurance agents that were listening to this call would understand, I used to be able to get those kind of guaranteed issue amounts when you're 100 employees or more.
Right.
You're getting it at 2.
Wow.
Yeah, because we're putting it all in a giant bucket.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
It's all going in a giant bucket. And then the most popular benefit by far is our dental plan.
Okay.
So we have a dental plan that we designed right here in Eau Claire. Very rich, very competitive. It isn't something where you say, well, I'm going to go with this benefit over the one at work. It's one where it is worth looking at, though, because you may find it's richer than some of them that are out there. We designed that plan so it was extremely competitive with every plan that was in the market. And then you can also throw in a vision plan with there's 2 different networks you can use on the vision plan. And then you can also put in a short-term disability, probably the most important, least known benefit out there. I mean, we all went through COVID.
Yeah.
So not being able to go to work due to a sickness, a
Yeah.
lot of people don't understand how valuable that benefit became. Second thing is it keeps the employers out of the loan business. Everyone should have short-term disability in any business at any level. If that employee is, maybe they're planning on having family,
Right.
or they're going to get sick. The employer doesn't want to be in that situation, especially the small employer who's very close to his employees, most likely. I mean, they don't want to get in the loan business. Don't get in the loan business.
Yep.
Cover them with short-term disability.
Yep.
And then we could throw in a few other ancillary items. We do a lot with accident and critical illness.
No, what?
Accident and critical illness plans are supplements to health insurance. They're cash-paying plans that would pay you as an individual cash for going in for certain events. Also helps the employer, since we put in off-the-job only plans. It directly affects their workers' comp by making sure that those off-the-job injuries stay off the job.
Okay.
The employees, probably second to dental, and I can look back at Wally, would you agree, is probably the most popular plan. It is in my house too. They are so rich. So when Obamacare hit, again, back to that timing, there was this incredible competition that was created in these accident plans. So there was only a couple people that were in the business prior to that. And for everyone else to get into it, the Allstates and Assurities of the world, they had to put in really rich benefits. So the price went down, unlike health insurance, and the benefits went way up. But it also was happening when our price of health insurance went up and our deductibles went up. So that is there to fill the holes in that. And then many times it fills the holes and helps with some of those out-of-pocket expenses that you're going to have while you're off work.
So what are some of the things that fit inside there, just so people
Sure.
can kind of have an understanding of?
An accident plan would work this way. You would have a schedule of benefits on a sheet of paper. It would say, for initial urgent care visit, $200. If you had a broken finger, say $600. I'm guessing. I don't have that in front of me right now.
That's...
And then for a follow-up treatment, we might give you another $50.
Okay.
So as I've done the math on this, just to put it in perspective, when I talk to employee groups, is if you had a broken finger in our market, it's probably going to cost you close to $1,000.
Sure.
Say you had the trip in, broken finger, you had a fracture, and then a follow-up visit. You're going to get close to that same amount from an accident plan. But now the more extreme your accident, it's not going to be able to keep up with the costs.
Right.
But it should start covering those deductibles and out-of-pocket costs so that people aren't hit. Now, accidents are never planned, hence the word accident.
Right. Yeah.
It's also, if you have a kid, you know you're going to the doctor for an accident, right? So,
I think the question is more, how often are you going to go?
Exactly. Or a kid in sports.
Yeah.
And then there's these benefits have become so rich that even entering a kid in sports gives you an additional benefit. If you go to the dentist, we put together in our particular plan for Midwest Select, if you go to the dentist, you can get twice a year $50 and so what we do is we teach people how to use the plan. And that plan, the cost stays the same. You can, unfortunately, if you have to use it a lot, the price will stay the same.
Okay.
So critical illness, on the other hand, is, let's just back up on that one. I think everybody here knows someone who's battled cancer. It doesn't matter if you're 20 years old or if you're 70 years old. There isn't anyone who isn't affected by it. So the first thing that everyone who has cancer is worried about is probably, am I going to live?
Right.
Fortunately, people are, but their finances are not. So what a critical illness plan does, instead of staying like the accident plan, you have this benefit, then this benefit. There's so many treatments involved, and there's so many innovative treatments that are involved in cancer that we've gone to what's called a lump sum plan. So $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, no questions asked. You could have the worst health in the world. We can get you a guaranteed issue plan through the chamber. But in this particular one, you have to have 5 employees. That's why we don't put that on the the core. To get the guaranteed issue amount, not to get the plan. But what that does, if someone has, say, a heart attack and they have a critical illness plan for $20,000, they will get $20,000. What they do with that money is completely up to them, but they're going to need every penny of it, unfortunately.
Right.
We see that a lot with business owners. They'll get a high amount.
Okay.
Because, they don't need disability. The business can run with or without them, but they tend to know that if they have a medical event, that's probably what hurts business owners as much as anything.
Sure.
And financial advisors could probably advise on that as well.
Yeah. So one of the things that I think a lot of people in this area, if we look at health insurance, and again, a lot of businesses tend to shop this out, and just the way the system works here is one year you could be going to one system, and the next year, if your business works, you're going to a brand new doctor and you're going to a whole nother system. And how I think you kind of address it, but I just want to be clear again for our listeners. It sounds like once you kind of pick these plans, you like whether it be dental or eye, you really have a very large choice of providers in this area. Is that correct?
Yeah, and dental, unlike health insurance, in fact, unique is Eau Claire is very unique in health insurance because we had a lot of regional carriers, system carriers, Security Health Plan, Prevea, etc. But on the dental plan, we actually built it so you can go to any dentist.
Okay.
And I mean any dentist. There is an underlying couple of networks if you have additional discounts, but we built it so that it has a 95% UNC. What that means is 95% of the dentists in a particular area would accept the rate that they have. So my dentist in particular is not in the network. I still haven't had a bill yet.
Okay.
Because they're paying enough. It's actually even better for the dentist.
No.
Yeah, the dentist, would they get in these networks, have to cut deals. Sometimes deals are very low.
Yep.
They're going to get paid the usual and customary rate, which tends to be a little bit higher. So,
okay.
Yeah, and the vision plan, we use two of the largest networks within the country. It really comes down to which particular eye clinic in your area is the most prominent.
Okay.
And that's how we would make that decision.
Okay.
Just talking to the employer.
Sure. And how often do you see, and what is the limit or how often do you see employees changing what benefits maybe that they choose to have, or do you see over time employers putting more money into something like this because it has worked in keeping employees and they decide let's boost the level and so they can get more out of this?
Yeah, I think in the last few years we've all realized the costs for everything have increased. So we have seen a substantial change in an employer giving $25 to clearly going up to $50 or $75.
Okay.
And it isn't because the plans have increased. They just want to give that employee a little more robust benefit because they know that competition is out there and that they can't always give those dollars in straight salary.
Right.
But they can give them in benefits. So we've seen that fairly regularly. Also, each year, our agents will go in and speak to the employees at whatever level the employer wants. If the employer wants us to sit down with every employee, we will every year.
Okay.
This whole thing also goes on an electronic enrollment system, so there's some privacy to the employee. If they want to go home and talk to their spouse about it, they can still do the enrollment. You don't have to ambush an employee, tell them to make a decision on the spot.
Nice.
What we can do is we can give them the information. They can jot down all their notes. They can sit down at the computer with their spouse, or they can sit with our agent and they can actually make this decision, an informed decision. And this is a decision that really comes best from an insurance agent rather than many HR professionals, because they have so many things going on that the details of every plan and every question could be exhausting. Well, it's not for our guys. This is what they do every day. So they do give the employees every year a chance to make any changes. We don't see a lot of changes.
Okay.
I would say we see an increase in life insurance. Once in a while, they maybe start a family or they purchased a home.
Okay.
They may add dental insurance because they lost it. Maybe a spouse was working at another place that had it. But generally, when they have their benefits, they'll hold them for years and years to come. And almost every employee will spend quite a bit more than the allocated amount because they see that these benefits are much richer than they thought for the cost.
So take that a little bit further when you say the employee will then spend more. So they have an option of putting some of their own money in.
Absolutely. So if the employer puts in $50, the average employee actually spends $100.
Okay.
So there's $50, and that just comes out of payroll deduction, which our team will actually break that payroll deduction down to the penny for the employer based on the additional dollars that the employee pulls out. And if the employer has a Section 125 plan, which is the cafeteria plan to get the tax deductions, they can actually take some of those employees' dollars and pull them out pre-tax, again, saving the employer the FICA.
Yep.
So, and that's a conversation we can have for each employer. We don't need to get into the whole tax implications.
We can spend a week and a half.
There's a whole new podcast right there. Health insurance alone is a whole new podcast.
No, that's I think that could be a whole series.
That could be a series. Yeah, no doubt about it.
So what would you say to a small business owner? How, to me, as you've explained this to me, as Wally has, it's fairly simple. I mean, it sounds like it. what is the benefit, do you believe, and what advice would you give a small business owner that, again, their first thought is, okay, it's going to be an additional cost. I can't do this. How would you encourage small business owners to either give us a call, give you a call, to at least learn more about this?
Well, there's no cost to the business owner to call us. And actually, we can bring in on the first meeting to not waste any of their time based on their standard industry class. I'll be able to tell them what their prices are on all the products. The only thing that changes is a little bit of life insurance on the more dangerous classes.
Yep.
So we can go in the first time, review it. It's not something that you really can just walk through and send through an email. It's a little bit challenging.
Yep.
You have to almost walk them through the program. And I think sometimes we need to tell the employer that we'll be there for them. And I don't sometimes think they necessarily believe you, because you're like, you're going to come in and help our 5 employees. I'm like, yeah, this is the way we do it.
Right.
And if we do it the right way, we'll keep that client for many, many, many years to come. And that it also gives that employer that's maybe dabbling, all right? So maybe he's only putting $25 out per employee, which really isn't costing very much per month. But that employer, he's going to grow most likely, right? And now he's got that group plan in place. And ever comes a time when we need to pivot from the defined contribution model, sometimes we'll start to just put in one company paid product and then another company paid. So you can really grow from where this starts, and you're not just pigeonholed here.
Right.
If the business becomes bigger and rates at any time can be rerun and they can come down lower, we would actually provide that service to them.
Okay. I mean, anything, we're certainly, when we first started talking about this, the end of last year, we announced this in some other programs during an annual meeting, and then January 22nd came and cracked the world here in Eau Claire as we know it. But we do want to remind our listeners that this is a program that we partnered with you, and as a chamber investor, you get some more discounts. And so who should they reach out to? How do you want them to get in contact with you to say, hey, I'm interested. Can we sit down and talk?
Well, you can call us at 715-309-5495 and ask for Chris or Wally.
Okay.
You can always go online, which where most people, believe it or not, find us today, is to go online to ms-ig.com.
Okay.
And you can just go, or you can just email us at info@ms-ig.com. Simply a phone call to Midwest Select or hitting us on the webpage is the easiest way to do it. It is valuable to us to know that you've heard it through the chamber. We want to know right away that we're dealing with a chamber member.
Mm-hmm.
If we do run into people, we will ask them if they're chamber members as we're out there talking to people, because there are benefits. And there are benefits beyond just the defined contribution program that focuses on the small employer. We have an additional benefit, I guess you could say, or consideration for all chamber members, even if they're large, on just certain lines of business. So if someone says, we just want to shop out our disability, what can we do there? And we tend, we can't throw a number out there. It depends on the nature of the business, but you're usually looking at least a 10% discount. So when we say that this is a chamber member of Eau Claire Chamber, then our carriers say, okay, we got to give it a little extra.
A little
extra
more push
power.
behind it. Nice. Okay. Anything you'd want to conclude with overall, specifically you want to get out there for listeners to understand about this, or anything within your business before we start to wrap up here?
No, I think that if you're curious about it, it's not any kind of a hard sales approach. We don't sell this product. We just tell this product.
Sure.
This is what it is,
Yep,
and this is
here
how
it is.
it works. And what you choose to do is completely up to the employer. We do take the employer first before we get down to that employee level. They make all those decisions, but there really isn't any harm in just asking for a quote. We could run quotes in minutes.
Yeah.
So.
And I'm assuming if a business person calls up in this model and says, hey, is there one or two people that I could talk to?
Clearly.
That you would be able to give them a couple of names to say, yeah, this is how it works.
Yeah, and there's also a lot of creative ways when you look at all the different businesses that have put in defined contribution. Some have put it in with some classes where certain employees of certain tenures get more.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's very unique ways, because it's not in the health insurance bubble necessarily. You can do some little bit more creative things.
Interesting. Okay.
With this. So I would encourage employers to call us, ask us those questions, and, doesn't hurt to ask.
Okay. And why don't you give them the phone number and website one more time?
715-309-5495 is the main number for Midwest Select. Website is www.ms-ig.com. Email is info@ms-ig.com.
And if you forget all that, of course, just give us a call or email us here at the Chamber, and we will pick up the bat line and get in contact with them very quickly and do what we can to help you, our investors, try and, again, as we entered this more from the workforce piece, to be able to offer small business an opportunity to be competitive when it comes to workforce, when we know there's certain things they just can't get into. So, Chris, want to thank you for being here today. My last question for you is really what this whole podcast and how Chelsea originally put all this together, and the thought of it is, why does business matter to you?
Well, I think outside of the obvious that business is the engine in any successful society, but the way I look at this and the way I look at how business matters, I think it creates innovation. I think this is probably part of it as well, is the fact that you want to be competitive, the fact that you don't want to be stale. Business forces everybody to innovate. Business forces everybody to think differently, and business forces everybody to really just be a little bit better. So that's when I look at business and the way business matters, I look at it as innovation. And that can be from, research in any way, shape, or form, to as simple as an insurance design.
Yep. Okay. All right. I'm going to like to thank Chris Dooley with Midwest Select and our audience. I think this is the first time we've ever had an audience in the background back there. So, Wally, thank you for being here. And again, if you have any comments or thoughts about our podcast and what we do and or future topics that you'd like to hear, please let us know. And we'll be looking for you as we get on to episode 8 down the road. But again, Chris, thank you very much. We'll see you next time around.
All righty.